County Commissioner saying that all departments should be prepared for upcoming budget challenges. How will you prioritize funding across the various aspects of the Sheriff's Office?
Thank you. Great question. The upside of that, I guess, is we're kind of used to prioritizing budgets in Island County, right? Island County runs on an exceptionally lean budget. For me, it's an easy answer. The priority services of patrol and the response for emergencies has to be a priority. And where we would get money if we were told we had to reduce, X percent from the budget, would have to be literally a line-by-line look and see what I could, cut a little bit out of this line, that line, and the next line, to where it would have the least impact on the public safety side of the house. People also forget that our budget includes running the Island County Jail, and a lot of those expenses are quite fixed. We're talking about food, medical, housing costs, and all that kind of stuff. So we would and have take a long look at each item in our budget and make the appropriate cuts that we could from there. There would be all in one spot for sure.
Ready for 60 seconds, the same question.
Thank you. I already work with a lean budget. It's not going to be anything new for me. And it just takes adaptability, looking at all the options that are available, and realistically remembering the priority for the money is to return the services back to the people. It's going to be one of those things that I think as we approach working well with other entities that are serving in the same community interest, is that's where we can find our joint funding. And what I would use as an example is if our roads are unsafe, then the police departments, the sheriff's offices, the Coupeville Marshal, and the streets and roads departments need to be working together to find out how they can combine their funds to serve the public in the best way. It doesn't need to just come from one office. So my suggestion for all of it is that we look at the budget, we go line by line like the sheriff said, and we really address each topic honestly and what the needs are and prioritize. Thank you.
And Tavier, you're first on this next question for 90 seconds. County commissioners are currently debating aspects of the new corrections center. As sheriff, how will you advise the commissioners on the ideal bed capacity and space for prevention and treatment programs in the new facility?
That's a great question. I'm glad that I'm going to be a part of this. I think the jail's rebuild or new jail is incredibly important so that we can bring Island County to the expectations that Island County residents currently have. And what I mean by that is by implementing resource systems into the jail where we already have these individuals contained, we need to ensure that as they exit those scenarios and that our facility, that they're offered opportunities to make better choices than what got them there in the first place. Now, obviously, there's a lot to talk about with that. This is a short meeting. This is a short time frame, so I can't get into specifics, but I can tell you the facility is where we have the best opportunity to reach the people and to really address those in a holistic and healthy way.
Rick, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. This is a project that's kind of near and dear to me. We've been working on this off and on, at least fundamentally, for several years. We realistically probably should have built a new jail 10 or 15 years ago. I believe the question was specifically about how would I advise the board about size. How much space we would allocate for beds and how much space we would allocate for programs. There are actually engineering formulas, and we've had a lot of conversations about how big, how many beds, all that sort of thing. There's actually surveys and studies that you can use that say, X number of beds per population, but I also think you need to weigh into that modern corrections. Modern corrections is heavy on programs and may not necessarily need quite as many beds. So we'll balance out using the best data that we have available, and we'll manage programs. We can multiply, we can use one room for two different programs, that sort of stuff. So we'll make best use of the space.
Rick, you're first on this question for 90 seconds.
Like speaking.
Do you support so-called red flag laws that allow guns to be temporarily taken from people likely to pose a danger to themselves or others?
I think properly managed, yes. There's a lot of concern amongst people that I talk to that it's just sort of a random process. you might be talking about your shooting club or your hunting activities at a coffee shop, and your neighbor would be able to say, he's a kook and I should take his or her guns away, right? The reality is that most of those things are in emergent situations. They're vetted through the courts. They're approved by a judge. And I have not seen any so far that were vindictive or done in any kind of retaliatory way to people. It would be nice, honestly, if we didn't ever have to have that. I'm a very pro-gun person, but I'm also a pro-safety person, and we deal with a lot of mental health issues. We deal with a lot of other intoxicants, drugs and alcohol, and people that are maybe not in a great place. So I don't love it, but I think in many cases it's necessary.
For 60 seconds.
Thank you. Yes, I actually kind of agree on this one. Is the responsibility of the courts are very vast, and this one is very specific. We call them mostly ERBOs, or emergency protection orders, essentially. And what those do is they're seeing through the eyes of the court. They receive affidavits, they receive facts, circumstances, and then the judge decides whether that's an accurate use of enforcement, and then it's directed back. It's not just a law that blanket states that no guns or that people have to do X, Y, and Z. It is a tried and true method that's been tested with the 5th and 14th Amendment, and it is as fair as it can be to take someone's rights.
And Tavier, you're first on this one. You have 90 seconds. There's been a lot of local social media chatter about this topic, so we asked this question to give both of you a chance to provide some clarity. What does the concept of constitutional sheriff mean to you, and what is your opinion of this concept?
So I'm glad I get to talk about this one. So this one was a trip in my part. I use the words for the context and not the movement, and this is why I am a rookie politician. I'm learning as I go along, but I do owe an apology for those that are impacted by those words. And realistically, I articulate that the movement of a constitutional sheriff should not be above the law. No one is above the law. I am not above the law. Everything that I have done is about doing it as a team for the best interest of the people, by the people, for the people. I do not support that movement.
Rick, you have 60 seconds.
I also don't support the movement in its entirety. I do understand why people might feel the way they do that are in that side of the conversation. Specifically, that they're in their environment, their culture, wherever they live in their particular locale, they may be feeling like their lifestyle is changing and it's out of their control. On the other hand, no official in this country and with the Constitution that we have is the ultimate authority. The people are the ultimate authority. For a sheriff to say that they are going to refuse to do this law or refuse to do that law is beyond the scope and the authority of a sheriff by statute. There are people that disagree with that quite strongly who are in that movement. I'm not in that camp. I believe that the people get to decide and pass laws. Whether I like them or not is irrelevant.
Okay, and Rick, you're first on this question for 90 seconds. What do you see as the biggest need in our community in terms of public safety?
Several years ago, I would have probably told you that, we needed to figure out how to deal with all the property crime that we're having. Right now, the thing that we deal with in the vast majority of our time is people who are suffering from mental illness or narcotics issues or both. And either as a result of that or behavior related to that, they sometimes commit a crime. But oftentimes it's not crime, but it's still public safety. There's people in the streets that are struggling, where they're at. And the cure for that is not going to be simple. And I've said this since my very first campaign. It's a combination of, education, enforcement, and accountability. Right? We have to educate people on the dangers of drugs early on in their lives, and people who are in the system have to be, receive some level of treatment that are willing to do it. But they also need to be held accountable for their actions, and that's honestly the best We also have a significant amount of other behavioral things, but the priority or the most obvious one that I hear people talk about is, there's crime rampant in the streets, and what realistically is there's people in crisis rampant in the streets, drive through a cover. And I'm not making light of that, but the accountability part of that is lacking a little bit sometimes.
We need for 60 seconds.
Can you do me a favor and restate the question?
What do we see as the biggest need in our community in terms of public safety?
Yeah, I think our biggest need, honestly, at this point is to have the deputies available to the public so that they can respond on the individual circumstances that are needed. We all know that there are a plethora of issues going on in our nation, and if we don't have the people out there able to do the job and communicate those needs and communicate the abilities and the resources that county already has available, then we're doing them a disservice. And that includes checking on the homeless person at the bus stop. That includes the domestic violence victim who hasn't been heard from in 3 weeks. That includes the children who are left unattended while their parents are working. Making sure that we have enough deputies and enough resources to send them out and address each individual topic is my primary concern.
And Tavier, you're first on this one for 90 seconds. The Keep Washington Working Act restricts the extent to which local law enforcement agencies may participate in the enforcement of federal immigration laws. Sorry. Keep Washington Working Act restricts the extent to which local law enforcement agencies may participate in the enforcement of federal immigration laws. What is the role of the Sheriff's Office in ensuring safety and building trust with all community members, regardless of citizenship status?
That's a great question. It's great that people are aware of that law. The Keep Washington Working Act is very important to our community because it outlines our responsibilities as officers, as peace officers. Washington State has made it very clear law enforcement is not to partner with or participate in civil immigration enforcement, and I back that up. I support that. What we can do with the Sheriff's Office, however, is surround our communities and provide services when those are in need. So I'll give the example. If we had an ICE incident and they came in and they started collecting our community members, and those communities were separated from their families, it is our responsibility as community members to support them. That includes the Sheriff's Office. So we would go, we would ensure that the community around it isn't impacted in any more negative way than it already will be, offer resources to the families once they're complete with that incident, and then offer continued service and restitution if we can in a way of connecting them with the other resources and the nonprofits that are already available from all the other community members that we have here. But realistically, abandoning the situation that's not a law enforcement issue, just doesn't sit well with me.
Rick, you have 60 seconds.
So I agree with Tavier that Washington's law essentially prevents any state or local law enforcement agencies from conducting immigration operations or participating with federal agencies who do. And it quite honestly creates a situation where there is no legal history or no protocol to address this problem, right? And if ICE comes here into Washington State and does federally lawful things, and oftentimes the communities want us to intervene and do something because it's illegal in Washington. There's no legal precedent for that, right? So it puts law enforcement in this state in a very difficult conundrum. But I do agree, and one of the biggest reasons that I decided to run as an independent is I ran into a situation where people were being trafficked in this community who were afraid to talk to me because of the letter, or to us because of the letter I had by my name. And I think that's not a good situation to be in.
Okay, Rick, you're first on this one for 90 seconds. Do you believe the coverage of Camino Island and Whidbey Island by deputies is sufficient to respond to current needs?
So there's a big misnomer that somehow or another Camino Island has fewer deputies than Whidbey Island. I've been having this conversation for 25 to 30 years now. The answer to the question is no, we don't have enough deputies to cover our needs. We're the lowest staffed sheriff's office in the state of Washington per 100,000 people and have been for many, many years. But somehow we get it done. We've been making it work for years. We've been doing it very well for years. It's probably not sustainable because the population is going to continue to grow. The cost of deputies is going to continue to grow. And the revenue doesn't grow at the same rate so that we can keep up with it. And unfortunately, we as a community, we've been kicking that can down the road since I've been here, right? I started here in 1994, and we were shorthanded then, and we're shorthanded now. I will be looking at grant opportunities like we always do. Staff grants are very hard to find that are any kind of a useful commitment, because generally they're for only salaries and that sort of thing, and they're only for 3 years. So there has to be some budget process. If I were able to hire deputies on COPS grants, for example, we might be able to fund their salary for 3 years, but then we have to budget for what happens when that 3 years is up.
Yeah, you have 60 seconds.
Yeah, my time was an Island County deputy, I noticed that most of that is we don't have enough deputies to properly service our communities. Now, how I see we can take an effective change on that is there's a certain cost to a deputy that can be placed on different positions that can better utilize our time and energy and resources. So what I mean by that is instead of having to have one deputy, we'll say, who gets paid $50 an hour to go to a behavioral health crisis, why not have a social worker or some form of public information specialist or some kind of connective person who can then bring that down, we'll say, to $30 an hour. Now I can potentially get 2 of those individuals who can manage or assist in resource gathering or resource services without having to pull from the very limited deputies. I do agree, I think we need to have a moment where we realize we have expectations as community members, and those expectations are that when you call 911, you will get a response. The deputies make it work.
Tavier, you're first on this question for 90 seconds. What is your stance on public transparency regarding jail operations, specifically public access to jail roster data and in-custody incidents?
Yeah, I'm gonna let you guys get out of here a little bit early on this one and answer it. Transparency should be obvious. I mean, it should just always be there. It should be on the website. It should be readily available at any time. There's no reason to keep those things secret. Those are, people that have been put into the custody of the state, and they need to be open and transparent. We need to be open and transparent and have that available at all times. Obviously, incidents are going to be different because incidents may require, not messing with jury options or public notices and things like that. But that's the same as in any other investigation. Investigations are pending. We don't discuss those necessarily, but the rest of the stuff about jail rosters and things like that, that has to just be open and available. And that's relatively easy because it's just a website.
And Rick, you got 60 seconds for that question.
Would you be so kind as to reread it for me?
Yes. What is your stance on public transparency regarding jail operations, specifically public access to jail roster data and in-custody incidents?
So jail roster data generally is available, and we have no issues with transparency on that, except when there's the exceptions to that for legal reasons, right? In custody incidents, there may be a time period while an incident is under investigation where we can't disclose everything until we have all the facts, right? After that, when it's the appropriate time, all of our investigations are open to public inspection. And as far as the jail goes, we have an open invitation to people to come tour the jail. We want you to know what the jail looks like. We want you to know what goes on in there. I can tell you that we have one of the safest, most professional jails in this state. I used to say for its size, and now I'm looking at incident rates, and I say we have one of the safest and most professional jails in the state, and completely open book on that topic. And once again, we have an open door. Make an appointment. We'll try to get you through so you can see what you want to see.
Rick, you're first on this one for 90 seconds. There are law enforcement implications in the balance between protecting freedom of speech versus stopping the spread of hate speech and harmful misinformation.
statutorily, there are laws that sort of define the difference between hate speech and your freedom, of expression and opinion, that sort of things. And everything we do is based on the rule of law. What may be hate speech to one person may not be perceived that way to another person. So we have to rely on what the legislature has set for laws to make those decisions. We can't arbitrarily make them from one set of circumstances to the other. I'm not sure what the person who wrote the question is getting at beyond that. Like I said, maybe I don't completely understand the question, but statutorily, hate speech is defined by law.
Tavier, you have 60 seconds.
Yeah, that's correct. Everything that the realm we work in is the rule of law. It's important to use the guidelines that are already preset and to not put personal opinions on what hate speech is or isn't. If an individual is on a plane and they say that big B word, it's going to get treated differently than if they didn't. So those are already predetermined, tested in the courts, and they're just our job to enforce them.
This is the last question for the sheriff panel, and Tavier, you're first. Will you make it a practice to testing 1, 2, 3. Will you make it a practice to solicit suggestions for improvement from your deputies, and how will you handle those suggestions?
Yes. So I tell people constantly that know me, I love devil's advocates that are working towards a better goal. If you're coming to me with a problem and you come with a solution, thank you. If you come with a problem and you're willing to work with me on how to improve that situation, thank you again. I absolutely want and enforce that expectation. So one of the things we have on our performance evaluations is a performance evaluation for me from the person I'm giving a performance evaluation to. And that's so that I can honestly say to people that I'm trying to better myself. And I'm getting the people who know what the work looks like to better me. It's reciprocal. It's a team effort, but mine also doesn't just stop with the deputies. It's across agencies, it's across specialties, it's locals, it's communities. I absolutely seek guidance because no one person can do it all.
Rick, you have 60 seconds.
I'm genuinely proud to say that since day one of being sheriff, we've had a very open door policy, not just with me, but for all of the leadership staff. We regularly have conversations about suggestions for improvements. One of the things that improves a culture in any workplace, in my opinion, is removing those perceived hurdles or boundaries where people can't speak out. The rule that we have is if we're trying to solve a problem, we have conversations appropriately and respectfully, and we take the emotion out of it. And anger is an emotion. So if you're upset about something, sometimes it's hard to get your point across and make any traction with improvement, right? And I honestly believe that having that culture in our office is one of the major reasons that I was endorsed by all 3 of the labor unions in the Island County Sheriff's Office.
Okay, now each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement, and we'll start with Rick.
So, first of all, thank you for being here.
Use the mic. We're recording.
I thought I was off the hook. Can you still see me okay? First of all, thank you all for being here. Our government process only works with participation, right? And one of the biggest things that I see on a regular basis that frustrates me is things are the way they are most often because of voter apathy. So be proud of yourselves for being involved in the process. And thanks to the Clinton Community Council for putting this on. This has been going on for, I think, 7, 8 years now that I remember, but it's always a good event. So throughout this campaign, I've talked about leadership, accountability, and public safety, but those aren't just campaign themes for me. They're the principles that have guided me throughout my career. Being sheriff is about more than enforcing the law. It's about building trust, supporting victims, working with our community partners, and ensuring the men and women of the Sheriff's Office have the training, the equipment, and the leadership they need to serve with professionalism and compassion. I don't believe leadership is measured promises, it's measured by results. It means making difficult decisions, being accountable for them, and always putting the interest of our community first. If you choose to re-elect me, I will continue to lead with integrity, fairness, and transparency. I will continue working every day to build the best sheriff's office our resources will allow, one that earns your trust, protects your families, and serves every resident with dignity and respect. It has been the honor of my life to serve as your sheriff. I respectfully ask for your vote so that together we continue to move Island County forward. Thank you very much.
Tavier, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, and specifically to the Clinton Community Council, I want to speak about why I'm running for sheriff and why this moment matters to Island County. I'm running for sheriff of Island County because I believe it deserves a leader who is present, capable, and prepared to take action to protect the future of this beautiful place that we all call home. I am committed to every resident and its guests, and my oath is to the constitutions of both the United States of America and to the state of Washington. And what I bring to this office is Marine Corps discipline, current law enforcement experience and training, and a deep belief that the public safety only works when the community trusts its sheriff. Safety isn't just about its response, it's about relationships. It's about accessibility, communication, and a department that works hand in hand with the people that it serves. When the community participates, when they feel heard, and when they know their sheriff, that's when public safety becomes truly effective. If you elect me, you are choosing integrity, accountability, and accessibility. You are choosing a sheriff who listens, who shows up, and who protects everyone with fairness and respect. You are choosing leadership that is calm under pressure, grounded in law, and focused on real solutions. Island County is special because of the people that are in this room and on our islands. And I want to ensure that we can fix what is broken and build a sheriff's office that reflects the values of the people that live here. Together we can build a safer, stronger Island County, one where every resident feels protected, every deputy feels supported, and every voice matters. And because this forum is timed, I wasn't able to get the specifics, but I want you to know I am always available to you. I want you to meet with me after this or one of my campaign team, and we will get connected if we're not already. And finally, I want to say I believe leadership means showing up, standing with the community, and leading by example. I've done that, and I'm prepared to continue to do that. I'm ready to serve, I'm ready to lead, and I'm ready to ask for your vote. Thank you.